Hello and welcome again to Genealogy Coffee Break, brought to you by the librarians at the Center for Jewish History. My name is J.D. Arden, and I'm here again with my colleagues Moria Amit and other library staff remotely, but bringing this Facebook Live video to you today. So the topic I'd like to share with everyone is how to figure out and work out old, messy handwriting documents. They might be in different languages, they might be smudged, they might be just so messy that it's really hard to read them. So I'm going to give you a few free resources that can help you, and I'm going to share some tips of how to work on deciphering old handwriting yourselves. So to start, those of you who saw this post promoting the video see that I included some handwritten text on the right side of the announcement. The question that I put to you for fun was try to identify the language or the Jewish dialect that was used in diaspora that's represented in this writing. The answer is, it is Judeo-Persian. So those Jews who in the diaspora were in the Persian Empire adapted and used the Hebrew alphabet for this dialect or language. So that was a clue. That's the answer. Let's start the presentation. This will be worthwhile for a general audience. You don't need to be Jewish. Some of the examples and languages that I'm using as examples in this presentation are Jewish specific, but you can use these tips and advice for any research. Everything that I'll present today you can use from home, and I'm giving a lot of examples of free resources that you can find, although I will suggest also paid services that you might choose to pursue. If you are in a community group, school group, that is interested in genealogy and you'd like to arrange a Zoom workshop or class with our librarians, we'll be happy to talk to you. Send us a message at the email gi@cjh.org or send us a comment in the comment box. If we don't get to your comment live during the video, we definitely will respond as soon as we can. We answer all the comments that come in through Facebook, either in the comment box, in the messages, or the easiest way afterwards, if you think of a question, is to email us again at gi@cjh.org. So take a picture of this screen or come back to this video later as a reference. The 3 free starting points that I'm recommending today, to start with, are Facebook groups. Some of them you might have to click and wait for the administrator to allow you to join. Some are public groups. Genealogical Translations is the first group that I recommend. If you have genealogy documents that you'd like to ask the whole group collectively to help you translate, if you're working with a document that's in English, then use the Facebook group Deciphering Genealogy Script instead. You could also post old handwriting in a language that's hard for you to read or that you're unable to read in the nationality specific or ethnicity specific genealogy group that you might also find on Facebook. For Jewish genealogy, we can steer you towards Tracing the Tribe, and you might find for other ethnic groups, whatever group might be helpful to you on Facebook. You could inquire if you can post a document to be translated. Keep in mind that all of these groups function by the voluntary benevolent donation of time by all of the members of the group. So there are always some rules that you should follow to be courteous. Read the group rules and keep them in mind if you're posting documents for translation. Most of the groups have a limit per day, have a limit of how many images, how many pages you can post at a time, and certainly not to waste people's time. Don't post in many different groups because one person might work on your request and waste their time if you've posted it elsewhere. So it's because now with technology we have these opportunities, just make sure to stay courteous. Another option, if you don't want to use the Facebook groups, is Jewish Gen. Jewish Gen, if you're doing research on that website anyway, there is a section called ViewMate, and I'll show you some screenshots of that in a second. If you have much longer work to be translated, 5-10 pages, and either you don't want to or it wouldn't be appropriate to post each page one by one, then do consider seeking and hiring a professional translator. So this site, this Facebook group, Genealogical Translations, was taken up after the former group, now defunct Genealogy Translations, went out of service and is now only an archived group that you could search old posts, but you can no longer post. So it's great. The more people that join Genealogical Translations, the better. The more people who can collectively take a look at text to help people figure out translation or deciphering messy handwriting, the better. I like to tell people that if you just show one person, you only get one person's opinion. If you post the document to this Facebook group, then you get potentially dozens of opinions and second opinions, which can be useful to give you a perspective of, oh, it might say this, it might say that. So it doesn't hurt to get multiple opinions, I think, in this case. So Genealogical Translations for English language, deciphering genealogy script. I'll remind users of the posting guidelines for this group, similar to other groups. So be sure to be courteous, be respectful, thank people for their time in helping you to decipher or translate a document or part of a document, and inform yourself about how you can create a good quality image. A lot of these groups and sites recommend that you use the website Imager to create a good quality image that can be linked so that Facebook doesn't automatically degrade the quality of a photo image that you would just post like a regular photo, so that people have a high quality scan or image that they can see well to help you in the deciphering or translating. Tracing the Tribe also does help people in translating handwriting that we're talking about today. And there are many other ethnic group genealogy places you can go on Facebook. I don't know specifically about any of them, but I gave some examples, and you could search around if you're looking for other specific help in a language. Jewish Gen, under the Research tab, even if you used Jewish Gen, you might not be aware of the ViewMate forum, which is found there in the drop-down under Research. ViewMate is set up with automatic expiration. Some users choose to post one image of the whole page with the section they're seeking help on outlined. On this group or other groups, it could also be helpful to post a good quality image of the entire writing sample and a close-up of the word or words specifically that you're seeking help on. So that brings me to the first tip that I want to tell you about, which is don't just focus in on the one word or name that you're having trouble figuring out. Take a look at the whole page. Look throughout the whole page for other words that you can recognize, and note for yourself what letters those are. So in this example here, we have an I for Israel, an S for Sarah, and a J for a surname at the bottom of the list. Those three letters are similar, but not exactly the same in ways that you can recognize when you look at the whole page and have a few words to help you make a key of clues in deciphering the letters. If you just took a look close up at any of those letters, you might be confused between the I, the S, or the J. So take a look at the whole page, and that's also why in these help groups, it's a good idea to give the whole page so that whoever helps you out deciphering letters has some examples to look for. By the way, comment in if you know who the famous person whose birth name was Israel Balin is. This is, at 5 years old, his ship manifest arrival to New York. He went on to become a famous Jewish American in history. So I thought I would include that for fun. Moving on, especially in old handwriting with ink before the invention of ballpoint pen, there's a lot of smudginess, there's a lot of variation in how people write different letters at a time when schooling was inconsistent. Certainly schooling instruction for ethnic minorities not in a country with their national language, and standardization of schooling gives a lot of handwriting variation. So just to take one example, first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, here you can see a few of the ways that this Aleph is written, especially with ink running between lines. You can see that there's a lot of variation to look for. So second tip is get to know the handwriting of the document you're looking at. See, does the person lift the pen between strokes? This can help you figure out the shape by tracing in the air with your finger the letter, and can help you figure out what the letter patterns are. Here is an example in Hebrew of a Russian Empire birth record. You can see in the far left of the image that the layout for these record books was usually to have one page that was written by one clerk in Russian, and then the facing page written by someone else. In many cases, the local rabbi was written in Hebrew. So another topic of what terms to look for when looking through these books are the keyword terms, but just in terms of the handwriting, again, look through the whole page or look through other examples where you can see the handwriting was written by the same person. If there's a name that you're struggling with, then look elsewhere for that same shape, and you can figure out what letter that was by seeing other examples. So I typed the printed words. Ha'av, ha'em, ben, and bat are the key words that you can see circled and underlined in red. So this is a good way to practice also looking at a document that's not terribly messy and legible, and you can practice and get to know 100 years ago, 200 years ago, what handwriting styles were like. So especially in Yiddish letters and postcards, the style in earlier centuries was to swoosh the handwriting around and not pick up the pen very much. So in these two examples, these are good ways to practice deciphering. You can see in the Hebrew alphabet the printed words on top and how much they get swirled together in the handwriting examples. Here's an example of a ship manifest that also demonstrates, even in English, how many ligatures and extra loops and dots you have comparing old handwriting to modern handwriting. So keep in mind that some of the extra swirls and loops were just the handwriting style and aren't necessarily dots or crosses that we would expect. Here's another example from old Yiddish postcards. One handwriting convention that can be confusing is this final resh, which gets turned almost sideways until it looks almost like a letter J in English. You can see in the top example and in the bottom two examples that there's often some extra loops, and in writing messily and quickly, the resh especially can be turned sideways. The most common Yiddish phrase that you will encounter on the back of photographs, on postcards, in memory of or in as a memento for zum Andenken von, is a very common phrase that was used when people were exchanging postcards or writing an inscription on the back of a photo to say, this is the memento of this day we spent together, or this family member. And in the printed examples compared to the handwriting, you can see certainly throughout different dialects, there are going to be spelling variations that we might not expect because in modern English, we have now standards of spelling that we're all used to one word having one way to be spelled. Back then, as you can see, sometimes ayin, sometimes two yuds, sometimes vav becomes yud in these different dialects. So keep in mind that beyond deciphering the spelling, you might be dealing with non-standard or dealing with a language that did not have or didn't use often one exact spelling standard. A very helpful tip, the third one, is to think of the different conventions, especially when dealing with deciphering dates and numbers. So here, the three examples, a very common convention in writing dates is to write the day itself in Arabic numerals slash then Roman numerals to indicate the month, and then followed by often the abbreviated year, just as the last two numerals of the year itself. So March 3rd, 1952, written as 3 slash Roman numeral 352. If you saw that text isolated, it might not be immediately obvious what it is, but in context, it can be helpful to look at old letters and postcards, look for that convention series of numbers to figure out the dates. Side note that if you're looking at Jewish marriage certificates or other documents written entirely or mostly in Hebrew, dates and numbers and lists of items can use Hebrew letters with numerical equivalents instead of any Arabic or Roman numeral systems. So know that you still might have dates and numbers just indicated in Hebrew only through the letters. I encourage researchers also, if you're interested in Sephardic diaspora documents, to watch this University of Washington video that I've posted the screenshot for on the right side. The Solitreo writing system used for Ladino, and or in a printed version, what was known as Rashi script, is a whole nother system of handwriting that can be helpful to study up on if you also are going to be working with and deciphering not just Ladino language, but possibly any documents written by Jewish communities in the Sephardic diaspora may have incorporated or used this handwriting convention, which is similar but not exactly the same as other diaspora areas of handwriting or like modern Israeli Hebrew. So the last tip also is don't get too frustrated. Know that now there are a lot of resources out there that can help you either by Facebook or by scanning and emailing an image to a friend. So do your best, but know that there are people out there to help you. We, the librarians at Center for Jewish History, are glad to refer you, like I am in this short video, to all of the resources that might be helpful to you. If you really have an extensive or complicated translation or deciphering job, then it might be appropriate, if you have the resources, to seek a professional translator or a professional genealogist with experience deciphering and translating that writing system. So I hope this was helpful to you. Remember that if we didn't get to your question or comment yet, we will. We welcome all your comments and suggestions. We welcome your suggestions for future topics that will be interesting and helpful to you. Take an opportunity, if you can, to visit our page, cjh.org/donate now, if this type of free programming is worthwhile to you. Then you can help us even with a small donation to keep this free and accessible content coming to you. You can sign up for email updates. And of course, if we didn't get to your question or you didn't think of it yet, don't worry. Even afterwards, you can email us at the email gi@cjh.org. And we'll see you next time for Genealogy Coffee Break.